All right, thanks for joining me. Today in our CCH2 data portal lunch, we're going to talk about the new label printing tools that are available in CCH2. I will start with a disclaimer saying that these are relatively new tools and they're still in development. So if there are bugs and issues, know that we are trying to fix them or we don't know about them. So you should send us information about bugs and things that don't come up well. So in fact, I just sat down with a collector here at Cal Poly who found a bunch of bugs, and I talked to the developer and we're getting them fixed. So just so you know what the status of that is. There is, in addition to this short video that we're going to be making, I just put in the chat a link to a video, and that's on the Symbiota YouTube channel. And that's a quick video that shows you or orients you to label formatting as well. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and just show you what it looks like in CCH2.
This is an overview of the new label printing tool.
So we have from our home page, you'll want to go into My Profile, Occurrence Management, and into the collection for which you want to print labels. And then you will go into Print Specimen Labels. So one little hitch with this is that if you want to create an upload profile, you kind of have to have an idea of the specimens that you want to print before you can actually create the profile. This may change in the future. But if you don't exactly know what you want to print yet, but you still want to fiddle around with it, you can just select anything and then create it from there. So if I'm not printing anything in particular, but if I just wanted to find some, I could just enter Nemophila, go to filter, and then it will show me all of the Nemophila records. Notice that you can only do 400 at a time. So if you need to print more than that, you'll have to run it a couple of times and use different search terms. So from here, and this is kind of the old interface that we're working with still right now. From here, you can select as many specimens as you want to print, or you can select them all by clicking the checkbox in the top left. But if I just want these two, and then I can scroll all the way down, and then I can find all the options for customizing my label format. So if you want to be really simple and you don't want to customize, you can just go to this label profiles tab or field, and then select generic or variant label from the drop-down menu. There are a couple things that you can customize from here. So you could customize the heading prefix. So in this case, it's going to say flora of, and then it will say the county, and then it will say county. And so if I just printed this, this is what it would look like. So the default options will give me this header. It will give me country, state, county, locality, lat long, elevation, most of the things that you will probably need, but you can, again, when we'll be talking about this, customize it more specifically later. One new tool or ability that we have now is from the print in browser. So I clicked this print in browser button here. You can edit the label content right there in the browser if you need to. So if you're like trying to quickly print something and you don't want to have to reformat a bunch of stuff, you could just say edit labels content, and then you could say, actually, I don't want the family here, and you could just edit it right there. So not very efficient if you're going to do that for, 10 to 15 to 100 specimens, but if you just are doing a couple, you can do it right there. Then you can print and save in a PDF, and then get your. However, if you want a very specific label profile, then you'll want to create your own. So if you go up to where it says label profiles, you'll see that I have a couple of test formats that I've already created. But to make a new one or to edit these ones that I have created, you'll want to go to this pencil icon. And then it will show you the profiles that you have editing access to. So because of my access, I am able to change some of the profile ones, but you will be able to change your user profile formats. And if you're an admin for your collection, you'll be able to change the collection specific profile. So if you wanted to start with a existing profile, you could just say clone profile. You must choose a target, and by target it means, do you want to make this a profile that's specific to you, to your profile, or do you want to make it a profile that's specific to your institution? So if I wanted to, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this one so that I'm not making tons of extras. So I'm going to go into user profiles. So I'm going to make a copy of the existing generic Robert F. Hoover Herbarium label profile into my user profiles. So you'll see it's right here. Title is OBI labels clone. And if I wanted to edit that, I would click the pencil icon. At any time, if you need to edit something, generally you click the pencil icon. So from here, I'm going to click this pencil. And similarly to on the previous page, you can see you can change the prefix, the state, suffix. These are all going to be in the header. You can also change the footer, but you can change these in a much more, well, the header and the footer will stay the same, but you can change everything in between that in a much more dynamic way using a different interface. So to do that, you will scroll down to the bottom and click this link here that says visual interface. So this is probably the trickiest part of getting to the label profile management. You pretty much ignore, I mean, you can do your header and footer, but then just come on down to visual interface. And what's actually going on in the background is the visual interface is going to create this gobbledygook block of JSON. JSON is a type of data storage or presentation or communication. But since not all of us know how to write things in JSON, this is a very nice user interface that's going to let us just drag and drop stuff. Okay, and this is what it looks like. So here in the center is our label content area. This is where we're going to drag and drop fields that we want to include in our label. And then down here, it's going to show us a preview of what that label would look like. So you can see that scientific name, authorship, taxon reg, this is all what is automatically part of the generic Hoover Herbarium label that I cloned into here. You can also start from scratch. So remember, I cloned a profile, and so then I can edit it from here. But if you just want to create a new one, you can also do that. So now I can move things around, edit things, and so that they look exactly like I want them to. So what has happened here is, so how to do that, you can add lines. And each one of these you can see is a separate line on the label. And you add lines by clicking the Add Line button at the very end of the label content area. To delete a line, you click the X button at the top left corner of the line. So let's say I wanted to add a line and I wanted to put the other catalog number above scientific name. So I added a line and I can use these arrows to move that line up to where I want it to be. Okay, so it's there. And now I want to put other catalog number there. So I'll come over to the fields available column and I will drag, oops, I just want catalog number, drag and drop it into the line that I want it to be. If I want to change some formatting aspect of this specific field, I would click on the field so that it's highlighted. And then you can change options for that field over in the field options section. So you'll see if I click italics, down here in the label preview, it has changed it to italics. I can also change it to all uppercase. That would be kind of weird for catalog number, but bold. You can change the font size by selecting from the drop-down menu. You can change whether it's on the left or the right. And you can also change the font, which would probably be a little bit weird, but okay, it looks like we're using Times New Roman. So you'll notice that because I had this really big font, now I have a little bit of a spacing issue. I can fix that by changing the line options. So there are two ways to modify content on a specific line. One is by modifying it by clicking on the field and changing specific field options. The other is clicking on the whole line. So see how the whole line is highlighted rather than this one field. And those line options are on the bottom right corner. So down here, it says line options. You can add a delimiter between fields. So if I had multiple fields in here, then I could say separate them all with a pipe or a semicolon or just something. You could even put whole words if you wanted to. You could put a bar above or below. So let's say I put a bar below. And right now, our problem is mostly spacing. So you can also add some spacing above or below. So let's see, I probably want spacing on the top. Oops. Gotta turn off my bars. And I believe that will allow space for this catalog number being so large. You'll just want to play with it and figure it out. But again, there are two ways to customize. You customize by clicking on a field and changing the options for that field, or you select the whole line and you change the options for that line. There are a couple of potentially tricky aspects in this fields available. So I don't think it's been changed yet, but there's a field called Verbatim Attributes, and that is actually the description field. So if you were looking at the occurrence editor, the description field is called Verbatim Attributes here. You can use verbatim event date, or you can use year, month, day. You could toggle between using month as a number or month as a name. And then there are a bunch of other things you can add, but these ones have already been added because we have event date down here. So event date is day, month, year, or I think we'll have to see, year, month, day. And then if you wanted it in a specific format, then you would just have to play with it there. So let's just say I'm done with this, or maybe I want to test it. I would save, format, and close. And then the changes that I've made to the formatting are reflected in this JSON. You don't have to look at it, it just is there. Now I'm going to save label. Actually, let's go up here and change the title. I'm going to say this is demo label. The prefix is going to be Laura Katie's backyard. And I'm not going to put any of these mid header pieces. I'm not going to put a suffix. My footer is going to be this is a test. And then I'm going to click Save Label Profile. Okay, so then I have my new label profile. Unfortunately, we have to go all the way back to Label Manager. So it's pretty easy to navigate there. You can just go one back on this little navigation strip here. Then you have to do your search again. So just a heads up. So if I wanted to print both of these using the new format, I'll select them. I'll come on down. I will select my demo label format that I just created. There we go. That's the prefix that I added. And now I can print in browser. And there we go. So see, I'm probably not very happy with how this is going. So I would want to go back and edit, move stuff around so that it comes out exactly how I expect it to. But now you know how you can access that label profile format and change it. Or you could say, oh, forget this, I don't need that. I'm just going to get rid of it and manually edit it here. One thing to note is that if you plan to use a label profile, currently it is not supported when you export to a Word document, from my understanding. So you can only do print from browser if you're going to use a label format. Otherwise, you can do the traditional way, the previous way that we have done label printing, and that's just by leaving this blank and editing the header, the suffix, footer. That can still be customized, but you can't use the label profiles to do a Word document. I think you can export to a CSV if you want to do mail merge. All right, and that's what I have for now. I see Allison has a question.
Yes. Are you planning to make it exportable to Word at some point? Or they are?
I don't know. My understanding is that there is some complication that's preventing them from doing it easily. So possible, but I don't know the timeline on that.
So my question when you were doing the demo was, it looked like you showed us how to change the font bold type and size with the body of the label, but it didn't change the header and the footer. So is that something we can change? Where do we change the header and footer?
That is a good question. And it's a little bit more complicated, unfortunately. But you can in your, let's go to editing my, you can use these class, let's see, I think style here. And I think we need to develop kind of a cheat sheet for this, but there is a way that you can use certain tags that will change the font and bold and I think size of the header and footer. But right now that's not customizable through the visual interface.
Can you choose or change the size of the label in any way? Like they look like they're all square. Could you make a more rectangular, like can you change the overall size of the label?
You can, depending on how many you put on a sheet. So what you were seeing is 2 columns. So if you wanted a really long one, you could say 1 column. If you wanted them to be really short, it could be 3 columns. But I think that it is limited by page width. So a standard specimen label is usually about half of the page width. And so I think that's what it's based off of. And if you think it's too long and square, you can always remove fields or put fields on the same lines to try to shorten it if you needed to.
I'm just thinking about the labels that are more just a little bit longer, a little bit longer and a little bit shorter, I guess,
Yeah, I think it depends on the amount of data on your label.
Okay.
We've been finessing that, Robin, by exporting to Word and then setting the column widths and margins in Word. And one of the neat things is if you want to print a label integral to a moth or lichen packet, if you set the top margin at 7 inches and the left and right at 1.75 inches, then it'll, and you have to choose 1 column when you export it to Word, then it'll put all of your labels at the bottom center of a page of paper. So then you can just print them all off and fold them.
There's also a new lichen and bryophyte packet profile. It is not in CCH2 because we don't have as many lichens and bryophytes, but it does exist in the bryophyte and lichen portals.
This was going to be my next question, is whether the other portals have these same functionalities now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this tool was developed for Symbiota in general, and then we just pulled it into our portal. And then the lichen and bryophyte packet printing, that is only in the other portals because, you know, it was developed for them. But some tools, a lot of tools are developed for the Symbiota Lite code in general, and then you can pick and choose what you bring into your own portal. So that's kind of the background process that we go by. And some developments, you know, we only make in our profile or in our portal because they're CCH specific. Like if we're going to do like all the phenological tools, those are specific to CCH, but they could be adopted by other portals.
So
Any
do
other
you,
questions?
well, sorry to hag all the questions, just one more.
Go for it.
Right now we're exporting into Word and doing a lot of the changes that you described in Word, and it's a nuisance. And so, so I guess what it looks like I should be trying is trying to make all those changes as you described to us today, and then plan to add it in the browser. Just a few minor, I can see one that that I probably have to do, which is I like the collector on the left with the number and the date on the right in the same line. And I bet you can't right and left justify in the same line, but maybe you can. I'll try and do it. But
Yeah,
so
you
there's
can,
a few
because you
things
can
that I
left
might,
justify one field and right justify the other field.
that would be great. So if I can set that up, then it may be in the browser. I won't need to change very much, in which case I don't no longer need to export to Word.
Yeah, that's the hope. And if you find something that you can't do, just let me know and I'll be able to tell you whether that's a bug or something that's just impossible. But, you know, this is because it's so new, we're still accruing feedback from the community.
Yeah, we're messing around with mail merge and kind of, it's a Microsoft product. And so it seems to have the same bugs that the fixing stuff in Word does. So this is neat. Could potentially be the thing.
Any other questions?
No, but thank you so much for showing this. I've been wanting to print labels from the database for so long, and I've been kind of afraid to get into it, but you've made it look pretty fun and straightforward, you know? So
Just drag and drop.
Yeah.
It sounds like we need to find a template that we can futz with rather than creating something from scratch. Will we find templates in there, or is there one that you recommend us cloning from somebody else's?
Yeah, so when you go into your label manager, you will already see this one that says portal profiles, and it's just called generic herbarium label. So you could clone that one and start with that one.
I feel like I have I've had this very standard format template for a long time, you know, double column Word document. And it seems real straightforward to recreate that with that system of just, you know, and starting with the basics and just a few, I like all the colors, little squares, a little like, oh, yeah, I think it'll be straightforward. Is that the same process for creating the annotation labels? Is that a different?
I think annotations are the same as previously. I don't think there's been any changes to that one. So it'll just show up with the name, determiner, determined date as previously.
Okay. And that's under I haven't done that yet. That's under a different tab, not label making, but annotation creating, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, there's another one just underneath print specimen labels called print annotation labels, and that's what you'll use.
Awesome. Okay.
Great. Well, thanks for your
Well,
time,
thank you,
everyone.
Katie.
I will post the recording of this little meeting presently once Zoom is finished uploading it or converting it. And then let me know if you have any questions or feedback.